Do you know who MLK was?
When I have a worry-filled mind, I like to wander outside. No telling what we might find. Birds calling, worms crawling, leaves falling down from above. Oh, I plant my feet on the ground. I keep my head in the clouds. I let my feelings out loud. I hear joy calling, fear crawling, tears falling down out of love.
Welcome back, friends, and Happy New Year! Mrs. A here with a new episode and a brand new season 4. Thank you so much for joining. Now, while I was gone, I hope that you still checked in with your feelings and you noticed what messages your body was sending you. If you didn't or you forgot, that's okay. We'll practice together again today. And we're going to practice with my feelings poster that I have up here. I'll zoom in a little bit closer in just a moment, but before I do, I want to remind you that you should listen to all of the different signals and messages your body is sending you. Think about how your brain feels. Is it feeling relaxed? Is it feeling worried? Or is it feeling foggy or confused? Our bodies send us lots of different cues and messages throughout the day. So take a moment to listen for them and try to figure them out. Maybe if your body is feeling really tense or tight, you might be feeling upset or angry or grumpy. Maybe if your body is feeling really curious or confident, your brain might feel sharp or focused. I'll zoom in on this feelings poster, and I'm going to ask you to point to the feeling and say the name of the feeling or emotion out loud if you can. If you're not sure what it says, ask a grown-up nearby or do your best to sound it out. How are you feeling? I am feeling excited. Thank you so much for sharing your feeling with me. Thanks for practicing listening to your body too. That's something that you can try a couple times throughout the day, and you can even teach your friends or your grown-ups and help them better understand their bodies and brains too. Now it is a brand new month since last time we were together, and I have the month written here on my board, but if you know the name of the first month of the year, shout it out. January. Awesome. Maybe January is your birthday month. Happy birthday to you if it is. Maybe someone you know or someone really special to you celebrates a birthday in January. Happy birthday to them if that's the case. Happy birthday to all January friends out there. Now, for January, we are going to start with the number 1 because it's the first month of the year. And so we've been working out or doing exercises and using the date to help us, but we were counting down because last time we were together, we were in the 12th month. And kind of like a circle, our year has started over again. And so we're going to start at 1 for January and we'll count up. Now, you may remember my friend Fig, and they always show us one move that we'll do. Make some observations and look carefully. See if you can figure out what they're showing us, and we'll check back in with them really soon. To start us off, since I'm so excited to be with you again and in a brand new calendar year, I thought our first move for January could be to jump. So you could do a big jump or a small jump, a seated jump, however it works for you. Let's all jump together and count up to 1. Ready? 1. Awesome job. Now, like I said, we're counting up. So after 1, what number comes next? 2. We are going to do 2 twists. You can do these sitting or standing, whatever feels best. Let's count up to 2 as we twist. 1, 2. Fantastic. And finally, Fig's move. Oh, yes. Sometimes if I'm feeling stumped, I try to copy Fig's move with my body and see how they've shaped their body and what muscles they're using, and that helps me. Did you know that we were going to do elbow to knee taps? Fabulous. Let's do not one, not two, but 3 elbow to knee taps. You can do these sitting or standing as well. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Friends, thank you so much for moving your body, building your muscles with me. I know it may not have felt like a very big or long exercise or workout because we only did 1, 2, and 3. But the beautiful thing about moving your body is no matter how much you do it, it's always beneficial. It always helps. And so I'm really glad you tried that with me today. And anytime you move your body or exercise, it's also really helpful or beneficial to take a big belly breath. And we always do 3 breaths. So let's breathe in big as we hear the bell and slowly let it out. Amazing job. Thanks so much for trying that with me. Now, at the beginning of this episode, I asked if you knew who MLK was. Did you have any ideas? Martin Luther King. And we're going to learn more about him today in my message and in these beautiful books. So, as always, see if you can spot any alliterations, onomatopoeias, or spoonerisms. Dear marvelous and magical kids, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an amazingly kind, patient, and peaceful person. He spent his life lovingly sharing, preaching, and teaching about how us humans are all connected and need each other to be the best us we can be. He called it the beloved community. There are some people in the past, and still today, that think people who look, talk, or think differently than them are less than. MLK worked hard to help people see that's just not true. We are all equally important and beautiful, me and you. Yesterday was MLK's birthday, and each year we honor him on the 3rd Monday in January. Let's learn more about him and his legacy. Love, Mrs. A. Did you learn something about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or MLK? Did you spot any alliterations or hear any of them in my message? An alliteration is words that are next to each other in a sentence that start with the same beginning sound. Did you see any spoonerisms? Those are words that switch the beginning sounds. Keep a lookout for each of those different things in my messages. There's also some onomatopoeias that I sometimes hide. I'll tell you more about those next time. If you'd like to learn more about different things I hide in my messages and more about different people and events, make sure you hit that red subscribe button now. And we'll get started hearing a bit more about MLK. This first book I want to share with you is called Little People, Big Dreams, Martin Luther King Jr. It's written by Maria Isabel Sanchez Vergara, illustrated by My Lai Denang. And I love these because they walk us through the life in a very simple way of people from the past and present who are very important. I'm going to hear a little bit about MLK. MLK was living through a terrible thing. That terrible thing was called segregation. It meant that public places, like restaurants and buses, had separate spaces for Black and white people. Martin and his friends were sent to different schools. How does that make you feel? Yeah, me too. Makes me feel confused, makes me feel angry and frustrated that he and his friends had to go to separate schools. Martin believed that one shouldn't remain silent or accept something if it's wrong. He promised himself that when he grew up, he'd fight injustice with the most powerful weapon of all, words. Do you see where he is in this illustration? He's in church. He grew up going to church. You may have heard in my message, he grew up to be a preacher. Martin studied at universities in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts, where he read about Mahatma Gandhi, the man who had improved the lives of millions of Indians with peaceful methods of protest. Have you ever heard of Mahatma Gandhi? Oftentimes people just call him Gandhi. He's another very important person in history. And we hear in this story and in my message that Martin Luther King Jr. was a man of peace. He worked hard to make sure he did not use violence to get his message across. This book walks you through a lot of other really important events in his life. But I wanted to jump to this one next because I talked a bit about connectedness and how we're all interdependent on each other. That's something that Martin Luther King really believed and really taught, and I agree. And I love this next book. It's a bit about Martin, and it's also about a famous singer, Mahalia. And it's called Martin and Mahalia, His Words, Her Song, written and illustrated by Andrea Davis Pinkney and Brian Pinckney. This is a beautiful book with a ton of information and fabulous illustrations, so I definitely recommend you grab your own copy from the library or your bookstore. But in the South, where Martin and Mahalia lived, Jim Crow laws made sure things were not as free. The laws said, black folks here, white folks there. That's how life was for young Martin and Mahalia, separate, but nowhere near equal. We heard about that in the first book. Do you remember what word was used? Segregation, yes. People were segregated or separated based on the color of their skin. We've talked before in previous seasons that the color of our skin is just determined by how much sunlight we see and how much sun our skin gets, or where our families are from and how much sunlight they got. And so really the color of our skin is not a very interesting or important thing about us. It's all beautiful and it's all unique, but it doesn't mean that we are good or not good. Martin's sermon and Mahalia's spirituals told their listeners, you are here, on the path, come along. Step proud, stand strong, be brave, go with me, to a place, to a time, when we all will be free. People listened and believed. Martin and Mahalia's work together began in 1959 during the Montgomery bus boycott, when the people of Montgomery, Alabama refused to ride city buses. Martin urged Mahalia to sing while he preached so that the movement could stay on course, and oh, did she sing! Here we see that word segregation again, and as we continue on this path, it leads to something different. A word called integration. It's the opposite of segregation. What do you think that means? To come together, to mix up, unite. Segregate means to separate and keep things apart. In this case, keep people apart. And integrate is to bring them together. Martin and Mahalia were blazing a trail, but the fight for justice was far from over. They wanted to lift their gospel gifts higher, grow them bigger, shout them louder, make Americans even prouder. Along with several civil rights leaders, they were excited to take part in the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. People from all over the nation gathered and began to make their way toward Washington, D.C. They traveled on foot, by bus, and on bikes. The March on Washington is a very famous gathering of people, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave a very famous speech at that march. Have you heard of his famous speech? We're going to take a peek at a book that actually recounts his speech and has these incredible illustrations to go with it. So let's check that out next. Here is the book called I Have a Dream, and it actually includes a CD of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s original speech at the March on Washington. And these paintings, they're actual paintings, are done by an incredibly talented artist called Kadir Nelson. I love a lot of his books and work. I have many of them in my library. And if you haven't seen this or any of his other books before, make sure you check them out. I Have a Dream. And these words are actually from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., with the paintings, as I said, by Kadir Nelson. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former enslaved peoples and the sons of former enslavers will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. We heard about segregation and then a word that means the opposite. What word could we use to describe these kids playing maybe at their playground or school? Integration or unity. They're unified as one. Connected is another great word. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. Now, Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech goes on, and as you can see, I skipped around a bit, but this book and his words and these beautiful paintings are so inspiring. I definitely recommend you grab yourself a copy so you can read it in its entirety. Thank you for listening to those stories. Now, for our mindful moment today, I was inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I hope you'll try this one with me. It's a 1-minute mindfulness reflection. We'll also use our noticing eyes to help us. But we're going to notice or reflect or think about the people around us. Maybe it's the people in our family. Maybe it's the people at our community center. Maybe it's the people at our school or in our church or at our art class. Whatever people you are thinking of, I'd like you to think about all of the different gifts and talents and skills that they have and that they share in your community with you. And I'd like you to think about what Dr. Martin Luther King has always taught us about how we're all connected and how each of us has to be the best us we can be in order to help each other be the best we can be. So I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute, and I'd like you to maybe look around your space or think about a community place and notice and reflect on all of the different beautiful gifts and strengths that everyone brings. Let's do it. did you feel doing that reflection or noticing the different gifts and people around you? Mhm. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I felt grateful too. I felt warm and cozy. I felt really happy and blessed and grateful to have all these different people with all these different skills in my life. Thank you so much for trying that out. As a reminder, every time we end an episode, we practice a different mindful moment. So make sure you're subscribed to see which ones we'll try in the future, and you can always go back and check out the ones we've tried together in the past. Now, before we go, I want to remind you that I love you because you're you, not because of what you do. And I can't wait to see you next time.